Okay, so welcome to this discussion, okay, hosted by CryptoVakil.in, which is basically aimed at creating some, engaging awareness videos surrounding the crypto community here in India, crypto industry in India. In this first series, we will focus on the regulatory and policy issues surrounding the cryptocurrency and blockchain regulation here in India. So I must thank you, Jay. I must thank you, Crypto Vakil team, for the invitation to moderate this panel. I am Albert Climent, the CEO and founder of OneBlock.Tech. And on this session today, we have quite an amazing panel. We have three high caliber speakers. We have Mr. Nishcal Shetty, we have Mr. Jaideep Reddy, and we have Mr. Jay Sayta. So we hope that we have this engaging discussion specifically on the legislative framework for this incredible industry, for this booming industry of the cryptocurrency industry here in India. So just to start with, let's just talk a little bit, introduce quickly the speakers, the description of our speakers. We have Nishcal Shetty, which is the founder of this and CEO of the leading Indian crypto exchange, WazirX. He's one of the vocal voices in creating crypto awareness in India. He launched a campaign called India Wants Crypto to urge lawmakers and regulators to put them on a positive mind frame and introduce positive crypto regulations in India. So Nischal, each day since 2018, he tweets to urge lawmakers to introduce positive regulation for India and to make crypto accessible to everybody. So in recent times, WazirX has seen a drastic growth in signups for the smaller cities like Lucknow, Patna, Jaipur, Ahmedabad, Bhopal, Guwahati. So the exchange has more than 8 million users and is part of the world's leading exchange, Binance. So welcome, Nischal. Then we have Mr. Jaideep Reddy, who is a dual qualified technology lawyer licensed to practice both in India and the US, in California. He's a senior member of the cryptocurrency and blockchain practice group of law firm Nischal Associates. He has done his master's degree from Berkeley in the University of California, and he's constantly ranked as one of the top practitioners in the crypto space in India. Actually, even me and my companies, whenever we have to talk anything regarding regulation in India, Jaideep is one of the first doors that I knock. So he advises leading businesses in industry, in fintech, cryptocurrency space, and he's based in Bengaluru office, I believe. And very relevantly for this discussion, Jaideep was the leading, he led the representation of the Internet and Mobile Association of India in what was a landmark Supreme Court case where central bank sort of issued a restriction on virtual currencies, and thanks to Jaideep efforts, that was set aside by a Supreme Court ruling. So he also led the drafting of independent submission made by the firm to the government of India for virtual currencies industries, as well as drafting self-regulatory frameworks and self-regulatory code of conduct for the industry. So thanks, JD, for being here. And last but not least, Jay Sayta, expert on the gaming laws and technology lawyer. He's in the forefront when it comes to gaming regulation, Indian gaming regulation and crypto developments. He's a BA and LLB honors graduate from NUJS, Kolkata, and is one of the top names when it comes to gaming and crypto industry as well. He has advised leading gaming and crypto companies in several regulatory issues. So who doesn't know Jay, right, when it comes to gaming especially? So Jay has written extensively on gambling and betting laws for various online and offline publications and academic journals. And he's currently the editorial advisor of G2G.com and a news media platform catering to gaming, poker, esports industries, as well as CryptoVakil.in, who is hosting this event, a website focusing on crypto and regulatory developments. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here. And let's just get down to business, I guess, and let's get right on it, I would say. So let's start talking. I guess the way to start, I would like to start by talking about government perception. I guess we can start maybe with Nischal and Jaideep to give your perspective, and Jay, you can come in as whenever you want. Let's talk a little bit about government perception, because the government appears to go slowly when it comes to regulation on cryptocurrencies, and this is not specific on India. This is globally. Nobody. I mean, everybody's trying to get their head around how to deal with this technology. So everybody's treating this technology differently. So I guess specifically for the Indian case, the finance minister has mentioned specifically that the government will take a calculated approach towards regulation, right? So I would like to ask to maybe Nischal and Jaideep to start with, should we see this as a welcome sign? Should we see this as a good thing, especially taking into account that the earlier version of their views was a proper ban, a proper absolute ban on cryptos? So I guess that's the first question for you guys.
I think it's definitely a positive move forward for India in terms of regulation. If you think about the progress in terms of, let's say, 2017, 2018, no one in the government ever officially gave any statements or spoke about crypto even. Then in I think 2019 we saw this whole draft bill which spoke about a ban, proposed ban, and that was not really the government, but a committee that was set up, which sort of came up with that recommendation. It's still a draft, remains a draft. But I think in 2021, what happened was our finance minister spoke about crypto, and at multiple occasions, not even in passing, but I think she specifically, answered questions around this. We've also seen quite a few questions asked in the parliament around crypto and regulations, and there's been a lot more chatter around, India regulating crypto. Though all of these are still, I would say, early days of regulatory chatter, but at least there is chatter around this. There is at least some discussions, and the wheels have started moving. As against before, where we did not really know what the government's position was, and whether they even want to think about regulations, or would they just let it be, or would they ban it. There was no clarity at all. So today we are more confident, especially when the finance minister says that India will take a calibrated approach. So it's at least we know it's not a shut door, and we can discuss regulation. Now there's also been talk about a bill coming to the parliament. It was listed in the last session, did not come up. But again, I see all of these as positive moves. The thing that has been, I think, missing in India until now is the industry participation. Now that hasn't happened. We've heard the government talk about crypto. We've seen a draft bill, but what we've not seen is the industry being invited for discussions. But I've seen a step towards that. So the step has been where different government agencies have been connecting and reaching out to the various exchanges in the country for data around the kind of crypto holdings that people have, or the kind of trades that are happening. Which again I see is so in a way, if you think about it, maybe we are all restless and we want regulations and the government to act, but I think they're doing that in steps. And when I see all of that, I'm much more positive about India regulating this eventually. So I think we are just in the middle of it, and most of us are not used to brand new, like markets which are not regulated. We've all gone into markets which are already regulated, especially financial. So this is that I'm like, live this moment. You get to be in the middle of it, not be like a late mover where everything was done by people and then we get it on a platter. Out here we have to work towards it. And so yeah, it's an interesting journey, I think, and it will take time before India regulates. It's not India is a large nation with a very diverse set of people in the country, so it's going to take longer, but at least the wheels have started moving.
Certainly, the wheels are started moving. Jaideep, I guess you have first-hand information about industry efforts to try to educate the government and making sure that they're making the right decisions when regulating. Maybe you can share some feedback there.
Right, sure. Yes, there have been ad hoc efforts by the industry to kind of reach out to the government. We as a firm also have put forward our views. But as Nischal said, there should be a wider consultative process. If you take the example of the privacy law, the Personal Data Protection Bill, where there were 2 rounds of consultation, there were discussions held at venues across the country. The stakeholder comments were invited. those were specifically considered and a second iteration was put out. That's a good example of a consultative process where something like that should also be done for crypto. And in fact, there is a pre-legislative consultation policy where the government is bound to invite stakeholder comments on any bill which is proposed to be introduced. So that would be the right way for the government to take steps prior to actually introducing a bill in Parliament. And of course, everyone is looking forward to a bill being introduced and a framework being put in place where things can move in a regulated fashion. But yes, there is an opportunity, of course, to have a licensing regime for all the intermediaries to be licensed and regulated, and also gray areas in other laws like the Foreign Exchange Management Act to be clarified.
Yeah, we'll get to that later, regarding the implications regarding the FEMA regulations and so forth, because that's, I guess, one of the big elephants in the room for sure. But crypto, crypto cases, right? Because this is extremely interesting. It has to be faced. The way I see it, regulation has to be faced by face, right? It's too much of a big universe to try to regulate it at once, right? Because crypto use cases are numerous, right? We have coins that are supposed to be used as a currency. Then we have smart contracts. Then we have DeFi's. Then we have NFTs. Then we have all these universe, right? So it might not be easy to regulate from a government point of view every aspect of crypto, right? So my question to you would be, blanket regulation at this point might be too overwhelming, right? So what would be phase one for regulation? What do you think should be regulated at first instance? Should we consider crypto currencies an asset? Should they be considered currency? I mean, what if you were a regulator, what would be the phases that you would follow if you were a government?
No, you said it right. It's a lot like thinking about internet regulations. When you think about internet regulations, because we understand the internet so deeply, everyone around us, we don't think about internet regulation as one complete thing, but parts of the internet are getting regulated. So, e-commerce has a different policy, and your cab aggregators will have a new policy coming up. So different parts are getting regulated differently. And I think that's the approach that should be taken in crypto as well. Simply because, the kind of crypto, it's the initial always the thought is crypto equal to currency, let's regulate it as a currency. But now it's getting more and more clearer that there are other aspects like your utilities and assets or commodities. And I think we're seeing this in other parts of the world. Like UK has, I think, specifically said that one of the direction they're trying to go is where based on the regulator and what they regulate, and if a cryptocurrency falls under a particular regulator, let's say you have maybe a commodity, then a commodities regulator steps in. If it's a currency regulator, and so on. So that's one approach, which is how do you use an existing regulatory mechanism to regulate crypto. Having said that, there's also a chance that maybe a brand new regulator gets set up who has the ability to regulate crypto in a very different manner, staying true to what the technology is. But what I think a government should do, and if I was on the other end, how I would do that is, there's also this race towards making sure that you foster a proper good ecosystem. And the best way to do that, because regulations take longer and there's a very long process to it, is coming up with guidelines. And does not matter, who comes up with that. Maybe a regulator, maybe the government itself. Some do's and don'ts that ensure that no bad actors, can take advantage of the situation just because it's unregulated. For example, as an industry, all of us exchanges decided to do KYC, but we can't enforce that on everyone. It's something that you have to self-regulate and accept it. But if there were guidelines saying that if you are an exchange or dealing with fiat and crypto, maybe to begin with, a KYC is mandatory. Now, that's not really regulation. That's more of a guideline that maybe the central bank or the securities regulator just releases it. So you have some sort of a template. I think that would be a faster approach to market. And then, you work with the industry to see how to regulate. I think the first thing that should get regulated probably are crypto exchanges, just because they're in the, in between. They're not the completely decentralized world. they're not the completely centralized ecosystem. So I think that would be a good way. And eventually you can regulate crypto, because regulating crypto is not just a policy limitation, but also the technical limitation. So you'll have to work deeper into that. But crypto exchanges in each country can definitely be regulated, and any other, I would say, product that deals with the fiat and crypto, both of these, I think those are far easier to regulate, and they should get regulated sooner than later.
That makes quite a lot of sense. Jerry, what do you think? I mean, how should the government navigate such a scenario? Because the rumors say that in India, government is considering crypto is going towards the route of is a digital asset, is an asset, right, rather than a currency, right? I think that's quite a reasonable approach. I don't know what you think about that, but as long as it doesn't step on substituting it as the use case of a currency, I think that's a reasonable approach. Considering it as an asset, and then regulate the exchanges and make sure that they comply with local regulations. What are your takes on that? And Jay, feel free to jump in whenever you want. Okay, Jaideep.
Yeah, broadly, I agree with Nischal. So crypto is a huge universe. As you said, you also have NFTs and DeFi and not just trading. But I think the low-hanging fruit, which should immediately be done, is the regulation of exchanges and wallet providers, because they are the intermediaries holding customer funds in trust. So even if a cryptocurrency is treated for different purposes differently, the activity of trading can be regulated broadly at par with, say, a prepaid payment instrument, or it is there are not as many participants as in the stock exchange ecosystem. So it would have to be more simple than that, because you don't have depositories, brokers, clearing corporations, and all of that. Right now, you just have a much more simplified ecosystem of an exchange or a wallet provider. So the regulation to that extent has to be a little more simple, but at the same time ensuring consumer protection by seeing that the players have enough liquidity and security, etc. So regulation of trading can be one thing, and there some of the proposals have been that SEBI can probably regulate that, because it has the expertise as far as investor protection and market participation is concerned. And so it can guard against, say, market manipulation. It can ensure adequate disclosures, and all of that. Separately, you also need some clarity on the tax laws, the foreign exchange laws, and now with NFTs, possibly we need to kind of examine the treatment under copyright laws and contract laws as well. So all of those can proceed independently under those laws. Like Nischal said, the internet, um, uh, I mean, has kind of encroached on every domain, from financial services to the traditional sectors. So you don't really have you do have an Information Technology Act which governs certain things, but it doesn't govern everything related to the internet. So similarly, you can have a law which licenses crypto intermediaries, but then other laws take care of other aspects. So, for example, the RBI can clarify the treatment of crypto under FEMA separately, because the RBI is the regulator. So it has to be a phased approach. But as Nischal said, I agree that the first step is probably to regulate trading.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jaideep and Nishcal that crypto trading is something that needs immediate attention of the regulators, both from the point of view of fair play and consumer protection, as well as ensuring that none of the bad actors are there. Today, we are seeing there are companies, for example, like WazirX, which are registered in India, which have an Indian presence, which try to comply with all the regulations, KYC, AML, and other things. Uh, and there are, at the same time, there are exchanges which are operating without any regulation, which are operating without any oversight, which are not even in India. So we need to distinguish between the two categories. And what we need to do is support and regulate and license the ones that are complying with all the laws, registered in India and having an Indian presence. And at the same time, those cryptocurrency exchanges that do not submit to the laws of India, that do not want to be in India, that are operating from some other location where the regulator cannot track them, cannot trace them, they are not willing to cooperate, and they are operating from somewhere else. We need to tackle those exchanges or those operators. Some of them may be fly by night, or some of them may not be acting in the best interest. There may be manipulation, etc. So we need to distinguish between these two categories of exchanges. We need to, of course, disallow the ones that are not submitting to the laws of India, and those which are submitting to the laws of India. It makes a lot of sense to treat it like an asset class, treat it like a commodity, and probably it makes most sense to regulate it under SEBI. Being the market regulator, it regulates the other sort of asset classes also, and it has the expertise, as Jaideep and Nischal said. So we need to support it, and it makes a lot of sense from the point of view of revenue generation, from the point of view of taxation, jobs, and the potential to actually develop and foster the broader blockchain ecosystem, and the ecosystem which has massive potential in various areas, not just it would be taking a very limited view if we were to see it as only trading, but we have to see how to foster the entire ecosystem, and how the blockchain technology can actually impact each and every sector of the economy, and help in bringing reliability, transparency, and trust in each and every sector of the economy. This supporting cryptocurrency may be the first step. The other point is whether cryptocurrencies will in the near future be a substitute for fiat currency. The answer is no. If we try to do that, obviously the government will have a problem, because government being the sovereign, they will always want a right and monopoly over the sovereign currency, over the fiat currency. So to see cryptocurrency in that light would also be incorrect, and maybe we are not mature yet, not reached that level yet, where we can talk about cryptocurrency replacing fiat currency or being in competition to the rupee or dollar or so on. We are not yet there. And the other point is simply that whether we as a society, as a liberal constitutional democracy, would like to be paternalistic in our approach and look at knee-jerk bans. So whether we want to equate ourselves with China, which is cracking down on Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, or whether you would like to formulate a policy which is non-arbitrary, which is fair, which is proportionate, which is in line with what the Supreme Court has time and again ruled, and including in the IMAI case where Jaideep was a part of, whether government should look at bringing in a law on those parameters, or look at a overtly paternalistic law which does not conform to constitutional norms.
That's interesting, Jay. Thanks for that. So I guess I take from three of you, right, that the government's main concern as a regulator, right, at this point, I don't think it's clouding their vision. I guess the fact that they might think that this will substitute the fiat currency, and that might put fear on them, right? But I guess that the main concern from regulator at this point for the use of crypto is money laundering, right? Money laundering one, and funding of illicit activities. I would say that's the two tackles that we should address first, to make sure that governments all around the world really support us, right? Support our cause. So as long as we can give answer to those two topics, right? Money laundering and funding of illicit activities, I think everything will become a little bit more easy. So my question to you guys is to gain legitimacy, right? Because we are in a sort of a pre-regulated environment, and we have to make a lot of assumptions for our businesses, and we have to self-regulate, right? And I think that Nischal is an example, right? I'm sure to gain legitimacy, I'm sure you're having your AML and KYC compliance systems in place where you're self-regulating. So you have these voluntary codes in place, I would say, right? These voluntary codes in place to make sure that that whenever regulation comes, you have all the case ready, right? So what should, the question to you, I guess, Nischal, directly is, what should be the approach of a crypto exchange towards AML, right? Anti-money laundering and KYC requirements in the absence of a clear regulation at this point. And also, we are in the blockchain technology industry, right? And I think that a lot of the transactions are going to gravitate towards, rather than know your customer, more than know your transaction, because a lot of these transactions are traceable, are fully transparent on the blockchain. So there's a lot of technology already in place where actually can monitor and can track blockchain proceeds for crime and so forth. So a lot of this is something that maybe we can also put to the regulator. We can actually know your transaction. We can know whether the transaction is coming from a good place or a bad place. So what do you think should be the approaches of an exchange towards this to try to convince that what we're doing is right?
Yeah, see, as an industry, at least, what we've done is before we were all regulating ourselves, following certain standards that we know are existent in the traditional financial markets. Now, recently, we've all of, at least in India, all of us exchanges have gotten together and we formed a self-regulatory code of conduct that we all follow. And we also encourage other exchanges in the country to join us. And I've seen this happen in other countries. Like I think Japan has some over 100 organizations getting together to form their own SROs, and that's the first step. Um, Ensuring that you first look at the traditional financial markets and adapt to that. And that, I think, to a large extent, everyone has done it, at least in most part of the world. Now, the second part is because you are dealing with the new technology, there are so many new aspects, like you said, the transaction monitoring, where you can trace things on the blockchain. Now, that does not exist in traditional financial markets. And what do you do? So, for example, there are software like we've signed up and we are using TRM Labs as a software for transaction monitoring. So we are doing that. There are so many more that are available, and we encourage others to do the same. And I think that's going beyond your regular concepts and bringing in the crypto concepts into all of these. The third would be, and which is where I think just exchanges, it's going to be hard, but this is where global laws around crypto have to come into the picture, which is, what happens when crypto moves from one wallet to the other. And exchanges don't always get to know who the other wallet is. But the moment there are global laws, and if it enforces certain regulatory, I would say, guidelines on each and every exchange, then we can all follow that common code. But in the absence of that, even if you as an exchange want to be going above and beyond what is possible, it's not going to happen, because it's in silo right now. One exchange or 10 exchanges or one country is not going to be helpful. It has to be a global initiative, a global push. And I think that's going to take some time. But I think in the current systems also, just following the AML KYC guidelines of traditional markets and bringing in all of these transaction monitoring, which every exchange has started doing now, that's definitely taking us a step forward towards doing the right thing. And the other important thing is ensuring that regulators and the law enforcement is also in the know of how to monitor these transactions. So what we were seeing in India, for example, maybe the 2018, 2019 time, was law enforcement really thought, for them, this was a black box. Meaning if something changed from fiat to crypto, they thought that it's over. You can't trace it. You wouldn't know anything after this. But now they're very confident. Now they understand that you can go a step further and you can go many levels deeper once fiat is converted to crypto. They reach out to us. We've got hundreds of requests from law enforcement coming in, and we help them get all the information. Now they know about these transaction monitoring tools. So there's progress happening in the law enforcement as well. I think it's about just making sure that we adapt existing things and then we innovate instead of just waiting for regulators and the government to come up. And that's what we are trying to do in the country, which is not just wait and say we are not regulated. What do we do? But take steps and take actions. And we've been fairly successful as a group of exchanges in the country, I think.
Excellent. That's very refreshing to hear. That's great. And Jaideep, I mean, you've written self-regulatory codes. We're pioneering this as well, so maybe you can share some feedback here. what should be the approach, of anybody wanting to do the right thing, because to identify who are the good actors and the bad actors, I guess that's the overall objective. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, broadly, it follows the principles of financial regulation, which is keep the customer funds safe, know your customer, have adequate disclosures, be transparent, be accountable. So if you see any financial sector regulations, they all follow these principles, whether it's SEBI regulations or RBI regulations or IRDAI regulations. And so the code we drafted was along similar lines, where the exchange has to be accountable and transparent. And of course, as Nischal said, there are some crypto specific things, like the traceability of the wallets. Interestingly, agencies like the FBI have been able to trace the identity of wallet owners in criminal cases, even where it initially appeared untraceable. By using forensic techniques, usually the owners of suspect accounts have been traced. Not to say that it's foolproof, but that's the same is true of any mode of value transfer. Even in cash, often you can trace it, and often you cannot trace it. And in fact, crypto is arguably more traceable than cash, because there is an electronic chain of transactions. So with the right forensic tools, and now you have data from Chainalysis and other agencies and other companies, showing that it's only a minority of activity of crypto that is considered illegal or malicious. The majority has actually been shown to be legitimate. So with the right forensic tools, all of this can be got to the bottom of, and the activity can be traced.
Okay. Interesting about these forensic techniques. I guess from wallet to wallet, I mean, even those forensic techniques are not going to work, I would say, right? I think it has to do with forensic techniques, whereas the person with the wallet has transferred at some point, to some exchange, and there's some kind of relatability for those transactions. But I will be very keen to understand these forensic techniques, and then maybe we can take it later on a call. But I guess that one of the questions that we can agree, one of the things we can agree, exchanges are crucial stakeholders to identify the good actors from the bad actors, because they are the central unit, which can actually bring up some light to the law enforcement authorities and so forth about what's happening, right? So exchanges play such a crucial role in regulation, right, to identify the good actors and the bad actors. My question is, we have so many coins coming in, right? Everybody, I mean, there's so many coins being issued and being created, new white papers, and of course, listing one coin in an exchange is a big achievement for a coin, right? And it can change the faith of that the founders, the coin itself, right? I guess my question is, what should be the standards for an exchange to accept a new listed coin? Because I think that will help as well to understand the regulator, that's to say, hey, we don't accept anybody wanting to sell a coin. We accept only use cases that actually add value to society. I guess a question for everybody. I mean, what mechanism should we have in place to adopt for listing a coin in an exchange, especially taking into account all these implications that we were discussing, money laundering, illicit activities, and so forth?
Yeah, obviously the commercial considerations where Nischal can add, but from a legal perspective, one thing is, in jurisdictions like the US, where the securities regulator is kind of going deep into crypto and analyzing whether every token is a security, there the exchange probably needs to ensure and classify whether the token is a security or not. In India, SEBI has so far been silent on this, because there is a definition of security under Indian law, but we don't have a Howey test like there is in the US, where there is a 4-pronged test to determine that. There are, of course, various features in cases, etc., of what is a security. But so far, SEBI has not shown an inclination to take that approach. And one can make an argument that because the list of securities under law right now is only traditional items like shares, stocks, bonds, etc., that it does not apply to crypto. But that is something where it is slightly gray. So there is always an open question of uh, would you be listing a token which is really, say, a share, but because it is on the blockchain, it is kind of called something else. So one needs to be careful on the fact that they don't become a de facto stock exchange in that sense. The other thing is, of course, due diligence on what the coin is, what kind of trading patterns it has. Is it just kind of um, without substance and is linked to kind of suspicious trading patterns, or those kind of aspects need to be looked at, which don't really come from law but come more from prudence and responsible business. But beyond that, there are no guidelines as of now under Indian law.
Nischal, you want to elaborate or yeah?
Yeah, I think just to add to what Jaideep said, and for an exchange at least, while due diligence is like the first step where you try to figure out who the people behind the projects are, and how long have they been working on it, and all of those. But then, irrespective of that, there are always surprises that come up in the market, because a lot of these, for example, a lot of the due diligence that you think about, Bitcoin would have never cleared that, because you don't even know who the founder of Bitcoin is and what was the background. So that's where we have to rely on multiple factors. So while for very straightforward projects we can do the due diligence, we also rely on, for example, our users. When a lot of people demand that there is a particular token they're interested in, then we have to bring that on board. And that's one more method, which is community driven. Let the community decide or vote for it or push for what tokens are important. And I think in general, no exchange can actually ever get listing 100% right, but we can all work towards ensuring that at least the ones that are upfront, not the right way of doing things, are excluded from exchanges. We also look at what are the other exchanges which have sort of listed them already. Now, the thing is, today what is happening is there are decentralized exchanges, so where you can list tokens irrespective. So even those to a certain extent help, because legitimate projects get popularity even if they list on decentralized exchanges. They get a lot of people getting involved. So these are just new data points that emerge, and I think as this ecosystem matures, new data points will emerge, but it will not be just the traditional methods of how traditionally you do things. I think there will be new set of ideas that would emerge, like for example the number of, today we're not yet in that stage, but eventually maybe the number of wallet holders who are using a particular token, or the number of maybe transactions that are happening over a network, the value logged in a network, maybe those are the things that will also start emerging. So I think we are in that in between phase right now, where there are some old world principles we use and a few of the new world. Eventually I think we'll have a more comprehensive set of do's and don'ts for listing tokens.
Very, very cool. Yep. That's right. That's right. So I guess one of the questions, I mean, we just almost in time to finish, but I guess one of the questions that we need to discuss, right, is something that Jay said in the beginning, and it's regarding how can we bring same rules and regulations for exchanges doing business in India, and that are probably self-regulating and abiding by whatever laws they can abide by, because still there's no clear regulation, but they're trying to do the self-regulate. How can we bring same rules and regulations for the Indian exchanges as well as the foreign exchanges which are entering in India, for instance, and are operating abroad, right? I guess this would be more of a legal opinion. So Jaideep, if you give us your thoughts, and also of course Jay, Nischal, you can elaborate.
Sure. Yeah. So The general principle is a law cannot be extraterritorial in the sense that it cannot completely apply to something outside the country unless there is a nexus with that country. But of course, if you have an exchange which has a substantial number of Indian users or is targeting India, or even if there is a moderate amount of trading happening from India, all of those may meet the nexus requirement, because a law can apply extraterritorially if there is some nexus with the country. So you also have, for instance, some precedent about this in the internet context where, say, the Indian Penal Code applies to anybody targeting a computer located in India. Similarly, the e-commerce rules apply to a platform which has substantial activity in India. So you can have a regime where it can be mentioned about, it can be activity based, that somebody, say, cannot carry out the exchange activity in India, whether they're established in India or abroad, provided there's a nexus, unless they meet these certain requirements. On the other hand, if there is a platform globally which is just passive and has some Indian users, then it becomes more tricky, right? So, for instance, foreign banks are not regulated by the RBI, though they may have Indian users having accounts there. So the RBI regulates the activity of Indian users, maybe sending money to those banks or how much money they can keep there, but does not regulate the foreign bank directly because it does not have the jurisdiction. So similarly, possibly the activity of the Indian users could be regulated, or where a platform substantially targets India, that could be regulated. But it would be kind of too overwhelming to try to regulate everything on the internet everywhere which has any connection with India whatsoever. Yeah, it would be kind of impossible because there's so much out there in the crypto space. So I mean, these principles have been evolved in law over time, so they would also have to be extrapolated to the crypto context. And these questions arise in the internet context in other spheres like piracy of content. You have, say, torrent websites incorporated outside India which may host infringing content. So you have some cases about the power of an Indian court to issue an injunction against those. So the same principles will have to evolve in the crypto context.
Right,
I think there is, Jaideep is right, but there is one thing I would like to add, that onus will be on the regulators and the local industry to create awareness, to warn the users, and to inform them that if you trade and if you do your activities with the local companies, with the companies which are submitting to the jurisdiction of India, which are located in India, then your rights can be protected, you would have remedy, and therefore if you are doing something outside India, it is at your own risk. It is at your, you be cautious. We are not advising you, and if something goes wrong, we can't help you. There are these awareness about other industries which are done, and I think similar things should be done. As far as the crypto industry is concerned, that is number one. And number two, what Jaideep said, there may be exchanges with substantial users targeting Indian users from abroad. Still, they refuse to comply with Indian laws or refuse to submit to Indian laws, despite requests. For those, regulators should act against those. There are various remedies available, including stopping access, stopping the fund flow, etc. Those should be exercised by the Indian regulatory authority.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And also, I guess one of the things is, and Nischal can tell us, but applying these regulations and abiding these regulations here in India might make him less competitive whenever it comes to pricing the coins as well, right? Because we also have to take into account the price, right? It's similar to the gaming industry, Jay, that you have experience with. Sometimes whenever it's regulated, the odds are much less because they have to pay taxes, they have to do this, they have to do that, and they cannot offer to the user the best price. So it's like, to some extent, unfair, because the prices of certain exchanges are different than others. So maybe sometimes the one with a lighter bag to carry can offer better prices, and that's something that, especially in India, where people are very price conscious, that's a problem for the local operator, right? So I guess I don't know what Nischal thinks about this, but I guess it has to do also with the on and off ramps, right? Because the foreign operators will have difficulty, right? I guess if you can actually be in India and be regulated in India and make sure that the on and off ramps with banking, all the payment processors between fiat and crypto are controlled, it's going to be very difficult for the foreign operators to operate on those, right? Because they will not be able to integrate such. So I guess that would be a measure of that gives you a competitive advantage. Is that right, Nischal?
Look, yeah, see, it's unfair to a large extent for a lot of parties involved. One is the businesses themselves, where you have to comply while your competitors in some other countries may not have to. But also for customers, because it's important that a company be registered in India. They're dealing with the finances and funds of the people of India, and customers, for them, if tomorrow something goes wrong in India, it's easier for them to just drag them to court or take them to the law. And even for law enforcement, when you are registered in India, it's easier for law enforcement to reach to you versus when you're outside the country. So in a way, it's a lose-lose for India if there are entities not registered in the country and still servicing the Indian customers. And I think the first, and this is where, again, if we wait for law, it might be too late. And maybe that's where guidelines, something as simple as just register a company in the country. You are free to operate and do what you want, and might have your companies abroad, but you should also maybe register a company in the country and be responsible and be communicative with the customer, the law enforcement, with everyone. And I think that's very important. Even for example, this self-regulatory code of conduct that we talk about, uh, exchanges that are registered in India are probably the ones who are going to be getting into adopting this. But exchanges outside the country, it's really hard for us to also even work with them and get them to adopt and use these self-regulatory guidelines. So I think net, I would say the simple solution is just register a company in the country, and maybe the government should look into this and see how they can bring everyone on par. And it makes the system more clean, and it makes the law enforcement more confident, because a lot of times I keep hearing that they reach out to some foreign exchange, nobody replies, and then it's a long process for them to get anything out of that. Whereas in Indian exchanges are always communicative and responsive. So I think that level playing field is important for all the players in the ecosystem, and all the actors in the ecosystem, including the customers, the law enforcement, and everyone else.
Okay, very, very interesting stuff. I mean, we're running out of time. So I guess the one last question for three of you, and we can finish. Maybe you can make a 1 minute uh, answer so we don't run out of time, and ending on a positive note, right? So if you had to tell this to all the regulators, all the stakeholders, all the relevant sources of influence, the question is very straightforward. How will crypto and the blockchain contribute to India's 5 trillion economic vision?
Look, I think India has traditionally been really strong with technology, and we've had a good run with technology, be it internet and products and everything around it. And crypto is that amazing new technology that has emerged, and we are not late. This is the right time, and it's just starting, and it's a good way to get involved early and have the competitive advantage as a nation that we've had in software and technology in general. And I think that first mover advantage, we still have that opportunity, and I think we should jump in and adopt to that. And I think in general, the whole jobs, the investments, the the kind of participation that we are seeing, because crypto is 24/7, not just like a full-time job, but people are also using this as an opportunity to get involved in their free time over the weekends. So there is this huge opportunity for everyone in the country to participate. It's more of doesn't matter where you are. We are seeing tier two cities people from tier 3 cities signing up in large numbers. So it's also, all you need is an internet connection, and India has really penetrated. The internet connections are everywhere now. So I think crypto is that great opportunity for every part of India to participate. And I think we should just grab that opportunity.
Yeah, I think one thing that's important is that crypto is not just about trading or speculation. All the blockchain use cases that are spoken of, whether it's NFTs, whether it is education boards verifying the certificates on blockchain, whether it is land titling, anything that is connected with a public blockchain will have to have a connection with crypto, with tokens like Ether and others. And so there has to be an enabling framework for crypto for these use cases also to succeed. It is a little like how you have the stock market, people do speculation and trading, but you also have the underlying value of those companies carrying on businesses in different sectors. So you need an exchange and trading platform and trading to have liquidity, to have price discovery, to allow people to cash out of their holdings, etc. But it is not only about that. But you do need that in order for the other use cases to be successful. Like the Maharashtra Board of Skill Development is verifying certificates using the Ethereum blockchain. So where you need Ether to kind of make it successful. So on that note, I think you do need all of this to have a healthy ecosystem for India.
I think the blockchain revolution has just started, and just like the internet disrupted our daily lives and transformed everything in the 90s, in the next couple of decades, it's going to be the blockchain technology. And I'm pretty sure that blockchain and crypto is going to form a very strong framework, very strong contribution to the Indian economy. If we look at the long term, next 2, 3, 4 decades, I think this is the technology for the future.
So thank you very much. Extremely insightful. Thanks to CryptoVakil.in once again to invite us, to do this. So it was a pleasure moderating you all, guys, and good luck.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you for hosting this.
Thanks, Albert. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye.